Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Friday, November 7th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that are located in the upper left-hand corner, let's say Start Here, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 21 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again. Absolutely free. You can also download from that page a whole host of audio files or shows just like this one where people have been stepped through the worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your App Store and type in the three words HeartLand Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Drag-On Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, please do so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a question or a comment from you through an email, we'll address it on the Internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred, so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or your input. The alternative is, if you're available, you can join us from 11 a.m. till noon, almost every weekday. You can go to zoom.us and ask to join a meeting. The meeting ID for this first hour is 853-2357-4173. That's 853-2357-4173. And if you do that, if you join through phone, you'll be automatically muted. You can unmute by typing in *6. And if you come in on the Zoom call, you're free to share your video or not, and speak up, or just listen, or chat in the chat room, or type into the chat room. So we have plenty of time for discussion today. We had our support group last night. And we talked about some things, didn't we? I spent some time again last night and this morning with the book by Suzanne Roberts titled It's Deeper Than That. And every bit of it that I read and or listen to through the Audible version is, it's stunning, the parallels and the way that clearly these are just really good, solid observations of the way things actually are, because it's so much in line with all of the other things we teach. And yet, it's a slightly different perspective. She talks about the wireless energy system which animates our bodies and how they're, I hear echoes of Bruce Lipton in her work and the idea that there's this external intelligence that connects us to this power source, this wireless power source. And I hear echoes of Dr. Michael Ryce talking about his background in physics and electronics and the power system. Michael Ryce talks about it as love that animates your body, and Suzanne just talks about, from her work through polarity therapy, about this body-mind energy system as similar to a battery with a positive and a negative pole and a ground, and ways that she's developed over the years to gain awareness of it, to be able to use the knowledge of the presence of this connection to an energy source, and it's, you might call it divine intelligence, as a comfort, as something that she can meditate on and gain a felt sense of its existence, which of course then is comforting and sustaining in different ways.
Dr. Tim?
Yes.
This is Susan B.
Yes.
You said in her book she mentioned polarities. Is she talking about like the shadow as versus the conscious later part of us? Is that the same? No. Okay.
No. What she's referring to is how there are two poles in a battery.
Yeah.
A positive and a negative pole. And it's amazing to me how many times the spiritual teachers that I've listened to over the years come back to this. Dale Allen Hoffman actually carries one of those plastic, fake, not fake, but a mock-up of a battery. And he'll hold it up and he'll say, no, how does the power flow here? It goes from the positive to the negative. Now, we don't like the negative. We've labeled certain things, certain experiences, our sexuality or our negative thoughts or our trauma from the past. We've labeled it as negative and we don't want to deal with it. So we try to cut it off. We try to push it away. And he stands there and he says, now, what would happen if you could cut off the negative pole of a magnet? What would happen to your power?
Yeah, right. Nothing.
It'd be gone, right? There wouldn't be a flow of energy or electricity or electrons or whatever you want to call it. That's the source, as far as I can determine it, of the word polarity here and how it's been attached to the work of this gentleman who, died in the early 1900s.
Well, similarly, we say, and maybe it's not the same at all, we say we need good, we need evil in order to know good, to recognize good. And in that way, I was thinking, I wonder if shadow is it's like an analogy or something. Anyway, it doesn't matter, except that I have a question related to the shadow.
Okay.
When I've almost finished Liz Gilbert's book, and what strikes me is Rhea, her lover, partner, was a huge personality, and she seemed to have no filters. If she was angry, it would be out there. And it was brutal, not attractive. And at the other side was extremely far in the other direction of a very loving, demonstrative, appreciative, bright person. Many, many people loved Rhea. And I was thinking, I wonder what made her so lovable, because she was out there. She might have sent people running, screaming, but not. She had a lot of people who loved her and accepted all of her. And I wonder if they did that because she showed all of herself. And somehow, this isn't something anybody could answer. It's just on my mind to think, if a person is really that transparent and open with their dark side and their good side, is it, maybe it's not always true. In her case, she came off tremendously on the lovability side. Somebody else, I suppose, could be showing the full end of their spectrum and end up being extremely unappealing and with no friends. Just a thought. If it fits in what you're talking about, you could talk about it. But I just wanted to more like just say I was observing that.
Yeah, well, it's a powerful set of observations. My mind goes in 3 or 4 different directions, coming up with responses to this for discussion about it. One of them is the observable dynamic in us as human beings, that my attraction to or revulsion against anyone or anything outside of me is an inside job. So the people that were attracted to Rhea were not attracted to Rhea because of who Rhea was. They were attracted to Rhea because of what was going on inside of them. And here, as we begin to talk about this, we're referencing a fundamental shift in the focus of attention. Now, you're asking a question about shadow. Where do you believe your shadow side exists?
It's part of me. It's just in there.
It's inside, right? It's an inside job.
Right.
What's being mentioned, pointed at, or talked about when we're using words about shadow is simply a label for those parts of our consciousness that we've lived through that we don't want to look at or admit. So we're turning away from, we're turning a blind eye toward them, or we're turning our sight away from it. Right?
Right.
That means if we're looking at shadow work, we're doing interior work. Now you're looking at Rhea as a person or a personality or part of this dynamic between her and Liz, and you're talking about how other people were attracted to her or not.
Right.
Where did their attraction to Rhea come from?
Themselves, inside themselves.
Yes, and so it's got nothing to do with Rhea.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that, Dr. Tim.
I know you don't. I know you don't. But if you'll start to question it for yourself, you'll be able to see this.
It's just an overall phenomenon, whether it comes from inside the observer or not. The fact is that whole configuration was unusual. And
it's not as unusual as you're trying to make it.
Oh, okay.
It's the actual it's just a little bit more intense than you normally hear about. Because most of those things that are this intense, people adhere to the cultural norm, which is to deny them and suppress them and keep them a secret. So you don't hear about it that much, but I'm here to tell you it is a normal thing. It may not be as intense. It's like, a rain shower is a normal thing. And then every once in a while you get a 100-year flood. But the rain is not abnormal.
You're saying that because everyone has the full range from dark to light.
Everybody has a full range, and everybody has some people that is attracted to them or likes them, and some people that don't. Everybody's had the experience of somebody, this person really liked me, and all of a sudden they dropped out of my life. I had a 15-year relationship with this person, and now they don't want anything to do with me. This kind of stuff happens all day, every day. And the driving dynamic that's observable, the driving dynamic of this pattern is all an inside job.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I just thought, and you're probably right, the whole scene exists on a smaller scale in most cases.
Yes.
Or it's just not iterated when it's just not out there as often or in that way that this particular one was. Okay, I got it. That's good.
You know, I remember, I've used this quite a bit. I remember one time I was listening to the shock jock, as he used to be known, Howard Stern.
Oh, yeah.
And he said at one time, because he was a young guy with lots of financial success and fame and all kinds of women throwing themselves at him, and he had his pick of a lot of women who could grace magazines and be supermodels, etc. And I may never forget it because this is years ago now. Am I remembering it because of the impact when he said it, or because of how many times I've repeated it and trying to illustrate points for people? But what he said is, the next time you see this supermodel or that supermodel that you're drooling over, just try to remember, guys, somewhere, someone has gotten tired of being with that woman. Now, he said it in a more graphic way. But the fact of the matter is, Christy Brinkley is the one that comes to mind from back in that era. She was a pinup model and a supermodel and ended up married to Billy Joel. And, well, when she got divorced from Billy Joel and that whole thing fell apart, she was still as gorgeous as she was when they met. And it wasn't like he fell in love with her in his 30s, and then in their 80s, she turned old looking and he didn't like her. She was still physically at the top of her game. What happened? Why isn't he attracted to her anymore? Why aren't they still together? All these factors that were inside him, and it's observable. It's there for us. How many times have you, if you stop and think about it, have you had something in your life you really used to like this, or you really used to enjoy that, whether it's a food item or whether it's an activity or whether it's a person. And all of a sudden, what we say is, we speak of it the wrong way. We say, this food, this activity, this person no longer holds any attraction for me, as though the attraction exists in the outside.
Right.
It's a complete misstatement. It's a wonderful example of how we've externalized and focused on the material in a world where the actual material substance of the world is not the true value. And it's a minuscule amount of everything that's going on. So we say, this no longer holds any attraction for me, or this person or that person, completely mistaking the fact that the attraction or lack thereof is generated inside the mind-body energy unit of the person who feels the attraction or doesn't feel the attraction, or who feels the revulsion or feels the attraction. And if you will, I like that little concerted that you've got going there, because it indicates in our language thoughts happening.
That's true.
And that's all it's all we're encouraging people to do with a discussion like this. Observe this for yourself. Think about this. Question what you believe. Every belief, always. And watch where it takes you.
Yeah,
Watch what you observe.
Yeah, my question, I guess, is if a person is sitting on their shadow and not showing others who they really are, that can mess up interactions between people. Whereas if somebody is already out there, you might be liked or not liked, but that particular openness has a certain appeal. Now, maybe that's where my mistake is. I'm talking about my appeal. But I have a grandson who is very good at manipulating, and when he's appearing innocent, I'll often be smelling a rat. Now, I'm possibly projecting, and maybe there's no rat. But my experience has shown me that there is often a rat, and I'm picking up on it, and it's sort of like shadow material not being revealed. So it's okay, we can leave this topic, but I'm just thinking about it, and maybe I'll come back with more questions after a while.
Well, you said, I'm just thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And my mind wanted to scream out, stop.
Not
Now,
nice, Dr. Tim. We might all have to leave the radio show because we think.
Well, no. Let me explain where that's coming from, because I'm in the middle of this book, going deeper into the book with Suzanne Roberts, or Suzanne Roberts, and it's all about getting still and going inside. It's all about acknowledging that the thoughts the mind has are not they're not relevant in this field. That the solution that's going to bring you the peace or the serenity or the compassion or the bliss or the connection to your source is not the intellect. Heavens to Murgatroyd, we've got right here in the Way of Mastery in the very first lesson on the 5th page where it says, hey, by the way, here's your first axiom in this work. The first axiom is, nothing that you experience is caused by anything outside of you. You only experience the effects of your own choice. A little bit later on that page, it says, the way of the heart is not the way of the intellect. If you're thinking a lot about this, stop. It's taking you away from the solution you say you want. It goes on here in the Way of Mastery, say, for indeed, that aspect of the mind, your intellect, was never designed to be your master. It was designed to be the humble and, if you will pardon the expression, very stupid or very simple servant of the awakened heart. Now, it's not stupid in a negative sense. It's descriptive in terms of it doesn't have its own intelligence. Your mind, your thinking doesn't have its own intelligence. It's what Michael Ryce would call the 9-bit mind, or the ego. It's what Guy Finley calls the mechanical level of mind. It just churns and churns and does whatever it's been programmed to do. In this work, they call it the intellect. The intellect was never intended to be your master. It was intended to be a very faithful servant or tool to what? To the awakened heart. So as you think and your mind is churning about this, and you're not reaching a bliss state or a contentment or a meditative connection of awareness through your meditation of your connection to the source which animates your life, then Michael Ryce says, cancel the goal. Cancel the thought, cancel the goal, and ask to be shown the hidden part of your own mind. I'm asking, it means I'm not thinking, I'm not out there searching. I'm going inside and settling in and reconnecting with the intelligence, some might say higher level of intelligence, some would say a more connected, some would say a more divine level of intelligence that animates my body, that helps me have the awareness in the physical.
So you're moving into the intuitive, are you saying that you can pick up on something without thinking?
Oh, absolutely. Oh,
Well, then once
absolutely.
you've picked up on it, you'll have a thought. You're in.
No, listen to me, please. You're thinking and you're spinning, and if you'd like to be right about this, I'll be happy to give you my little gold star and say you're right. But the fact of the matter is, I don't do my best work when I'm thinking. And the thing that's flooded in my mind is all the years I spent in jails, psychiatric hospitals, juvenile halls, where I was the young, strong, physically fit guy. And they would use me to help calm down, fights between people or inmates or patients attacking each other or attacking the other staff. And every time it went well, I wasn't thinking. It was a reflex. It was me having a good day and all the training that I'd been through, which eventually was decades worth, that just kicked in. And I frequently, after those things were over and people were trying to debrief, they would ask me, well, how did you do that? And I would just not have words. I don't even remember. The action was so fast, there wasn't any thought involved. And there are 3 or 4 of them that are just flooding into my mind right now, and I could describe them to you. And as I describe them, I say, this just sounds silly. But it's the truth that my action without thought interfering, my action that's derived from a direct interplay between the truth of life, actuality in the moment, and me with my full range of my full complement of skills, physical, mental, and emotional, when those are interacting, there isn't thought. There's just this flow. And the Western mind is going to scream against this. The Way of Mastery acknowledges it on that page I was reading. It says, as soon as we tell you that you haven't experienced anything except what you thought, your mind is going to be saying, but wait a minute. I didn't ask for this, and I didn't want that, and etc. And that's where they try to get clear. Yeah, you've got this whole energy system, life, intellectual fantasy thing going on in your head, in the frontal lobes of your mind that you call your ego and your past and your experience. But that's not all that's going on here. And if you had to rely on your thinking to keep your heart beating and your food digesting and your hair growing, that's the problem with me. I just don't have enough brain power to get my hair to grow, see? And so most of us, tongue in cheek, we all think about, how we digest every bit of food. And no, we don't do any of that. So the thing you're trying to use to understand this very complex dynamic process was never intended for that. Think about what Michael Ryce is talking about as he's going into, now I'm breathing, now I'm doing my still point breathing for 1 or 2 or 3 hours a day. Why is he doing that? If thinking about the problems provided a better solution, he would be spending more time thinking.
I'll just have to stop the discussion, first of all, because I'm getting a call from a sister who keeps calling and calling and calling, meaning there's probably a problem. Number 2, I feel as if I haven't asked the question I'm trying to ask. I'll think about it and try to put it again some other time.
Okay, well, you go ahead and mute and deal with what you need to deal with. And thank you for the comments and questions, because it's a really important topic. As a matter of fact, as I was saying, I'm having trouble getting out of that pattern of response because I'm in the middle of the book with Suzanne Roberts, and it's all about be still and know. It's all about a meditative practice. It's all about a little bit of an intellectual understanding about how or why that might be so useful to keep the whole system flowing and healing. And if you think about Dr. Michael Ryce's talks, from the physical to the mental to the emotional, there is so many parallels. There are so many parallels between his work and what she's come to in her studies and life experiences. So what it means is I'm not going to be thinking about it. I'm going to do what Rilke calls us to and learn to live in a questioning state that's observing, not conscious analytical. And it's a real trap. It's a real big hurdle for most of us from the Western world because, as I say so often, we've been conditioned with both reward and punishment to focus on the intellect and to think that it's critically important to our well-being and safety to get it right at the intellectual level. And that's not the truth that most of these deep teachings are pointing us towards.
Can I jump in for a minute?
Please.
Yeah, and if Susan has to go, hopefully she can listen to the recording because some of this is for her too. I just wanted to back up to Dr. Randolph Stone and polarity therapy. This wasn't my first exposure to him and polarity therapy, and like everything it seems in my life, things come back around to me that I need to focus on. And so this is a good reminder. But I never studied polarity therapy specifically. However, I did study quantum touch by Richard Gordon. And Richard Gordon, probably Dr. Stone was dead, but I know that Richard Stone's first book is called Your Healing Hands, The Polarity Experience. And it's all based on Dr. Randolph Stone's work. And then with quantum touch, and then I think he's got something actually after quantum touch. It's just a further evolution of that polarity therapy. And so that just brings me to my favorite PSA, which is I really encourage people to look outside the allopathic medical model, because the best people that are doing the most interesting things are the chiropractors, the naturopaths, and the old school, like French style osteopaths. If you have some kind of trauma or injury, the Western medical system is great, but they have no solutions for chronic diseases or anything other than giving you something to suppress a symptom, which is never good to suppress a symptom. That's a message from your body that you need to do something. So it's not easy. I encourage people to find someone in that realm, chiropractic, naturopath, osteopath, whatever, that's already outside the box, not just the person that does the adjustment. Osteopaths in this country really don't even do what was called spinal manipulation anymore. They have the same rights to prescribe drugs as MD does. In fact, Joseph Mercola, who's well known and, at one time practiced it in Schaumburg, and I saw him as a patient. People think he's an MD. He's a DO. So, but over in Europe, the DOs are still doing some really interesting things. I don't think any of the schools over here really teach like the old school osteopathic methods that still develop. So, yeah, look outside the box like Carrie did in finding Dr. Holes in Elgin, Illinois. I mean, that's a perfect example. That guy does like a dozen different things in addition to chiropractic that you would never associate with a chiropractor. So that's just my 2 cents.
Thanks. And of course, because it's not homogenized, you don't really know what you're going to get when you go see a chiropractor, even if he or she advertises themselves as holistic or functional medicine. I have a patient who was very diligent and worked and looked and found somebody who advertised herself as a holistic / functional medicine chiropractor. And my patient went to this person and said, for a better part of a year, there's nothing holistic or functional medicine or systemic about this person. So you just need to be a good consumer. You need to advocate for yourself And as Don just said, and we say regularly here, the allopathic medical model has extraordinary benefits in certain narrow fields. It's not a good guide for an overall healthy life, physically, mentally, or emotionally.
Hello?
Yes, Carrie?
Hi. So one of the things I've done with Dr. Holtz is the QNRT, quantum neuro something therapy. I don't know, Donald, you might remember what the R stands for. And it's a somatic emotional healing, using the body as a messenger for what's going on emotionally, and doing a lot of healing, deep healing of the body and emotions through this tapping and light therapy that he uses, and movement, and saying not really maybe affirmations, but acknowledging the issue. And it did a lot of deep healing for me around grief, around separation. So I use those things that Dr. Holtz does in conjunction with other healing modalities like Michael's tools very much. I use those. I use constellations work. I use deep healing body work. I used Dolores Cannon's quantum healing hypnosis for technique. I went to see a practitioner for that. So I'm always going outside of the traditional
Allopathic medical model.
Yeah, and so I'm drawn to specific things for specific reasons. And I found that using all of these things, in addition to an intellectual awareness of what I need to work on. So I won't say that using the mind or the intellect doesn't have value, because it does, because for me, I am very much a learner experientially, but also, I mean, you should see all my bookshelves and things that I'm reading, like 7 books at a time, and just like knowledge, I bring it into my mind and my intellect. Some of it is absorbed, and some of it is, no, that's not right. So I'll give you a quick example about constellations work, which is about working with your ancestors and the ancestral energies that we've brought in with us that are not ours. And we have the opportunity to heal that as we heal the generations, which is amazing. Well, I was watching this one video of this woman who was doing this work with someone else individually, and she said, yeah, one of the things is getting the perpetrator, however far back in time they were, to acknowledge what they did and then to feel guilty. I was like, no, that's not what this is about at all. This is about healing. This is not about blame, putting guilt. This is about healing this person. And when we extend our love that way through that, they are also healed. Like Michael was talking about his dream, of when he was in breath work, of being told to look down and seeing this immense blackness, and then seeing these tiny pinpricks of light and asking, what am I seeing? And he was told, you are seeing all the people in your generations who are asking for you to help to heal them through this work that you're doing. Are you willing? And he's like, yes. So even, like you said, even practitioners of these things aren't always, we need to use discernment because they aren't always spot on. It's like, okay, you're doing constellations work, but when you heal, you're healing through the field. So I am the victim and I am the perpetrator. So as we heal all of this, we are none of those, right? We are just healed through the field, and there's no room for guilt and blame. So I totally see your point of view that we really need to use discernment.
Yeah, as you're talking, I remember a time years ago where somebody liked something they'd done with me, and they said, "Oh, you would love this woman, and she's right here in Crystal Lake, and she's holding a little lunch and learn kind of thing." So, I'm a relatively busy guy, or was at the time, but I said, well, I'm always interested in learning, and this could be a nice networking opportunity with somebody here. And what I'm hearing from the person who referred me over there is really solid stuff. So I go over and I listen, and, for point, for the first hour and a half, it sounded just like the stuff we teach, that I've been exposed to, that resonates for me, that I pass along, whether it's in my therapy sessions or it's in the groups or the support groups. And then we have a little snack time and then come back. And now she's got this special thing, this real juice, that the secret sauce that makes it so effective for her. And she starts saying pretty much the opposite of what she'd said for the whole first hour and a half, about how the focus is internal and we create our own experience, etc. And what she's talking about, this very specific thing, that when you're in a relationship and someone has broken trust, you have to flip the tables and you have to make the person who was the perpetrator literally become the victim. And that person has to do whatever the other person says he or she needs for the true victim to feel better. It was just like, and then as she's telling this, she describes how she knows and how she came to this because she had been a victim. And so there's the answer. This is her trauma talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is her, I'm going to get revenge. Not only am I going to get revenge on the people that have, broken trust with me, I'm going to help create a movement on the planet where everybody who's been a victim rises up and punishes the hell out of whoever they think victimized them.
So then we can become the perpetrators.
I want my perpetrator badge, right? I want to be on the...
Right.
It was so bizarre. It took my breath away in a sense, and I reached out to her after that, offering to consult a little bit to see if she's got any wiggle room for adjusting that focus. Not a peep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It
we
left
need
me
to
with wounded...
follow our intuition and sit in our discernment.
Yeah, it left me with the realization that wounded is as wounded does.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I want to add to that. I
Susan
noticed.
F.
Yeah, hi everybody. That I noticed in the work that I'm with people, you can only take people to the depth that you've done your own work. So we meet ourselves at our own consciousness. So, it sounds like the lady you're talking about, Tim, or what you're talking about, Carrie, is right there. They came up against, well, in a way, the Peter principle. Their own level of incompetence spiritually. I would say that, we don't know what we don't know. And we have to meet ourselves in every moment. And what you said, Tim, she obviously wasn't willing. You were there as a mirror to help her move past her own dissociation or denial. and yet she was not willing. I see that a lot with, and showing up, and so our willingness to see that and hopefully learn from that in our own journey, to stay curious and conscious to our own patterning, that we come up against our own things that we don't want to go past.
Yeah, so that's beautiful, Susan. So I think that's really true. And after I listened to this woman talking about, the guilt thing last night, and I was having a conversation with Terry Woods about it on email. And so I called the woman near me who lives near me in Rockford, who does constellations work, and I told her about what I'd read, and because I had written to Terry, and I said, the woman that I've done constellation work with would never go to the whole guilt thing, And we had a lovely conversation, and she said, yeah, she does do individual constellation work. So I've set up a session with her for the day before Thanksgiving. So I'm very excited. Because I have done group constellations with her before.
Is this Dodie?
Yes, Dodie.
Yeah.
She's a beautiful being.
Yeah, it's funny because I know also, Carrie, I've done quite a bit of constellation work myself, and with the whole journey, especially with the work that we're doing, Michael's definition that life is love flowing through a cell, and where life got constricted, and all members of the family deserve to be brought into belonging.
Yeah, and one of the questions I asked Dodie this morning was, they're in this course that I'm doing, this codependency to interdependency, and she knows of Michael, and she studied, I think, a little bit with you, Tim, in your groups at one point.
More than a little. She was a regular member for years.
Yeah. And, I said to her, I told her about, Michael's vision of seeing, the little dots of light in the darkness, and that those were the souls to be healed. And I was talking to her about also there in this codependency group, there is so much trauma that's being healed that it just like lifts my heart up. And I said, and I'm in this place where I'm not feeling that level of trauma, and I'm wondering what I need to do next. And as we were talking, I realized that it's time for me to do what Michael's doing consciously. So as I was breathing this morning, doing my breath work, I was thinking about my mother and how much love I have for her. The love just filled my heart, filled my room, filled my aura, filled my space. And I was just standing there. We were hugging each other. And I just realized that's what I want to do in this constellation work with Dodie, is to really work through healing my generations. So that's where I'm going next. Even though I know that as I heal, it's happening, and I want to do it consciously with my generations.
What a wonderful ancestor you are. Stay conscious, present, and bring love, or love wasn't present.
I'm tired of the magic. And yes, I'll go for the surgery if I tear my rotator cuff or whatever. Of course I will. And the real healing is that deep down healing that I've seen you go through, Susan, so bravely and beautifully, and others as well, with their trauma, and that we're stepping into a new level of healing as our vibration shifts. That's where we're going. So that's the step I'm taking for now, because I'm also doing I'm doing training as in shamanic journeying and connecting with the oneness and with the cosmic breath. And it's been an amazing thing. And I think doing an individual constellation session is very much copacetic with that at the moment.
Look forward to hearing about it.
May I offer a sharing?
Sure.
This is Celinda. I have become aware this has been another exciting topic. Thank you so much. I ran across a book many years ago, and I've mentioned it on the radio show before, of When Helping You is Hurting Me. And I can't remember, called Exiting or Getting Out of the Messiah Trap. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with this. I think Dr. Tim is. But that was the ingredient for me, because I realized that in the power person dynamics that there's one other aspect that we don't talk about. We talk about the victim, we talk about the bully or the perpetrator, but very rarely is it mentioned in my conversation or anybody else's except now in my conversation, that the Messiah is the third party in that power person dynamic. That we have the choice of being the bully or the victim, or we have the choice of being the savior. And I think there are a lot of us that go into the healing professions, into the teaching professions, into the religious professions that are caught in the Messiah trap part of the power person dynamic. So I thought I would share that with you. And it sounded like that lady that was mentioned, I think Carrie mentioned it, about the lady who said, oh, just have to make the perpetrator, the bully, the victim, and make them feel guilty. I think that was one of the Messiah traps. Sometimes the savior comes on a white cloud. Sometimes a savior shows up as someone with a big whip. So I just thought I'd share that for you, because I definitely know the teacher trap, the savior trap within myself, and I'm constantly looking out for it because it shows up.
So what you're saying is that the Messiah aspect of this is not a good option.
Right.
Okay.
Any more than the bully or the victim. We have to, it's sort of like what you've all just said. We got to take care of our own healing. It's like what you said, Susan. We got to do our own stuff before we can even begin to be of benefit to each other. And I would say in benefit to ourselves as well. Yes. So I just offer that. I hope it's helpful.
So, Linda, I think that's wonderful, because I think that whole Messiah Savior thing has to do with ego. And I know that as I did a lot of deep study into racism and my own racism, there was a lot of that about white people coming and saving Black people, from whatever, in small interactions or large interactions. And it's kind of prevalent, I think, in our culture. And it's an aspect of I'm better than you in this way, or or I'm more advanced spiritually than you, or whatever. So, yeah, so I do feel that my healing has an impact and that my healing really, as I go deeper into my healing with conscious awareness, that it is part of the whole field and everyone in it.
Yes, and I just had something flash through my mind just as we were speaking, all of us, that it's my need for a savior. It's my own unhealing that drives me in that particular direction. So the more I heal myself with the help of the divine, that the less I will have to be a savior to someone else, a fixer, a savior, the one who knows and rescues. Thank you so much for all of that.
Yes, I kind of had that years ago with my husband. Oh, I'm going to fix him. I'm going to save him. And now I just let him be on his journey, you know.
And I stand my ground, and I do my very best to stand my ground in love and acceptance for both of us as we are. And I'm having that whole learning journey with my own husband, right? I love it. Thank you.
Well, I'm thinking now about the tie-in between what Carrie has mentioned about her allowance, acceptance, appreciation for her husband, which has changed, even though he hasn't changed. And what we were talking about earlier in terms of where does the attraction a person feels for another person or another object, where does that reside? And this is an example of the clear demonstration that it resides within Carrie in this instance. As Celinda is saying, she has the same kind of pattern going with her husband. Her frustration or her relaxation or her attraction or compassion resides within her. It doesn't reside within the object that her mind is pointing her towards to focus on. And there's a thing about the polarity work that Don was talking about that her name will come to me. Suzanne Roberts writes about in her book, it's deeper than that. And her book is well designed, and it's got these links where you can watch a YouTube video here about your ideal pattern in the wireless energy system that animates your mind and your body. And so you can get it from her book. You might be able to get some of these videos if you just go to her website or about the book. But if you're trying to understand the use of the word polarity, just keep trying to bring it back to the idea of energy flow and how Michael Ryce talks about how you don't have any devices that will work if they're disconnected from their power source. And Michael Ryce talks about your power source is the love, the energy, the life force. He calls it love, capital L, love. In this work, she's not giving it that name. She's just talking about the wireless energy that keeps us going and our connection to it and ways to understand it. So I thank you all for being here. I looked up and just realized we're a little bit past the hour at noon. And ever since I said it, yesterday or the day before, I've thought, you know what, I need to add this to my closing, and if I ever write blog posts again, but at the radio show, I usually say we come from love, we're made of the stuff we call love, we actually are love, and everything else is false. And now I feel compelled to add, please try to observe for yourself in your life. Every time things go the way I don't think they should, they always work out better than I ever thought they could. And I look forward to you being able to recognize that same observation in your own life and enjoy whatever energies or result it brings. Thanks for being here. We'll be back on Monday.